They say the countryside in Brazil looks peaceful at night. Miles of open land, the kind of silence you don't find anywhere near a city. And on most nights, that's exactly how it feels: calm, familiar, predictable. But in 2014, on a farm just outside the town of Sinop in Mato Grosso, a man named Daniel Moreira, a 38-year-old farmer who'd lived his whole life among those fields, started noticing something odd about those quiet nights. Daniel wasn't the type to make a fuss. He followed the same routine every evening, locking the tool shed, checking the water tanks, making sure the animals were settled. The kind of habit built over decades. And nothing ever really changed out there. The fields looked the same. The air felt the same, and the sky above him was always a dark, endless blanket. But for weeks, Daniel had been feeling something he couldn't quite explain. Not fear, not yet. More like a nagging sense that the land around him had become too still, as if the usual sounds, insects, distant rustling, the soft creaking of the old fence, were fading away, little by little. He didn't mention it to anyone. People in his region didn't like when you invented things, as they would say, so he kept it to himself. Until one night in September, when the silence around his cornfields finally felt strange enough that he stopped mid-step and looked out into the dark, trying to understand what exactly had changed. He stood there for a moment, listening. The air felt unusually heavy, as if the night itself was waiting for something. He couldn't explain why, but that stillness made him hesitate before taking another step. When he raised the flashlight, the beam cut through the darkness and revealed nothing out of place. The cornfield stood motionless. The old fence line was exactly where it had always been, and the path leading back to the house looked unchanged. Everything was normal. He tried to shake off the discomfort. Long days in the fields could play tricks on anyone, he told himself. Still, something kept tugging at his attention, like a quiet reminder that the silence around him wasn't natural. A few minutes passed before he resumed his routine, walking along the edge of the field. That's when a faint vibration reached his ears. It wasn't loud or alarming, more like a distant hum, steady and low, barely noticeable at first. He turned toward the corn rows, expecting to see a passing truck in the distance, or maybe machinery from a neighboring property. Nothing. The night was clear, the sky empty, no headlights or engines anywhere. Another step, and the hum grew slightly stronger. Not by much, just enough for him to stop again. He let the flashlight lower a bit, keeping his eyes on the field. Something out there was different, not visible, not identifiable, but present. A sensation that the darkness ahead wasn't simply darkness. And for the first time in weeks, he felt the quiet turn into something closer to anticipation. The hum leveled out, settling into a steady tone that seemed to come from above the field. He aimed the flashlight toward the center of the corn rows, expecting to catch the reflection of metal, or maybe an animal moving between the plants. What he saw instead was a pale glow forming just a few feet above the corn stalks. It didn't flicker. It didn't drift. It simply hovered there, perfectly still, as if suspended by nothing. The light wasn't bright enough to blind him, but it was strong enough to outline the tops of the plants with a cold, white edge. He froze. The glow expanded slightly, then tightened, almost like it was adjusting its shape. There was no sound besides that low vibration, no wind, no rustling. everything around him felt locked in place. For a moment, he wondered if someone was playing a prank, but the movement that followed ruled that out completely. The light slid sideways, not fast, but unnaturally smooth, covering a distance that should have required some kind of mechanical noise, yet it remained completely silent. His breath tightened. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't behaving like a drone or any aircraft he knew. When he raised the flashlight again, the glow responded. It rose. Not abruptly, not with any acceleration he recognized. It simply lifted in a straight line, as if gravity no longer applied to it. The hum grew sharper for a second, then faded the higher it went. By the time it reached a point where the sky swallowed its outline, the vibration stopped altogether. He didn't move, not until the night returned to its usual shape, insects chirping again, the distant rustle of leaves drifting back into the quiet, the air finally feeling like something he recognized. Eventually, he walked toward the spot where the light had hovered. The ground felt warm under his boots. When he parted the cornstalks, he found a circle no larger than a small shed, the plants bent outward in a perfect ring, no footprints, no burn marks on the soil. Just that precise pattern, as if something had pressed down from above with absolute control. He stayed there for a long time, trying to understand what he was looking at, but the answer never came. And in the days that followed, he avoided sharing the story. People in the region didn't take kindly to talk like that, but he never forgot the silence before the glow appeared or how the night changed in an instant, just long enough to let him realize that something in those fields was paying attention to him, something he still couldn't explain. It was early evening in São Francisco de Paula, a quiet town in the southern part of Brazil known for its cold winds and thick forests. The sky had already darkened, and the countryside felt unusually still for a winter night. Most farms in the area were scattered across long patches of pine trees, separated only by dirt roads and old wooden fences. She had arrived a few hours earlier to check on the family's property, something she did every weekend when her schedule allowed. Before heading inside, she took a moment to make sure the animals were settled and the yard was in order. Nothing seemed out of place. The only sounds came from the distant rustle of trees and the occasional bark of a neighbor's dog far across the valley. As the cold intensified, she moved toward the small barn near the windmill, planning to lock everything up before the temperature dropped even further. It was supposed to be a routine task, simple, quick, and familiar. What she didn't realize was that the silence around the property was about to shift in a way she had never experienced before. She was about to lock the barn when something moved near the windmill. At first, she assumed it was one of the dogs from a neighboring farm. A few steps later, the movement repeated, this time quicker and closer to the concrete base of the structure. She raised her flashlight, expecting to see an animal. The beam caught something standing upright. It wasn't tall, yet its posture didn't match anything familiar from the region. The body looked narrow, and the arms hung lower than they should on a person. The figure shifted slightly to the left. That small motion was enough to show that it had been watching her. Before she could react, it advanced with abrupt, uncoordinated steps, closing the distance faster than she expected. She stumbled back and lifted her arm by reflex. Long, thin fingers struck her forearm, leaving a burning sensation along the skin. The creature paused for a second, as if assessing her reaction. Its head tilted to one side, and the shape of its eyes reflected the light of the flashlight without blinking. When she tried to retreat toward the barn door, the figure lunged again, this time reaching for her shoulder with enough force to pull her off balance. She managed to break free and ran toward the house, keeping her eyes on the ground to avoid falling on the uneven path. The cold air made it harder to breathe, but she didn't stop until reaching the back door. Once inside, she locked it and pushed a small wooden cabinet against the frame. Her hands shook while she tried to steady her breathing. A few seconds later, something brushed against the outside wall, followed by a faint thump near the door. The cabinet shifted slightly, not enough to move it, but enough to warn her that the creature had followed her all the way to the porch. She backed away and grabbed her phone from the kitchen counter. No signal. The nearest tower was several kilometers away, and the weather often interfered with the reception. Before she could think of what to do next, the doorknob twitched one short, precise turn. Another attempt followed, then another, each one more forceful than the last. The cabinet scraped against the floor as the door vibrated in its frame. She stepped toward the hallway, trying to stay out of sight. The walls of the house were thin, and whatever stood on the other side seemed to understand exactly where the lock was. A sudden impact hit the wood, not strong enough to break it, but steady enough to show clear intention. The creature pressed again, as though testing the structure, as if it expected the door to give way. All of that didn't feel real. Marina reported that she was never able to return to that place again. Her trauma was so intense that she even moved to another state and changed her profession. Our third account takes us to the coastal plains of Pernambuco in the summer of 1999. The location, a vast, isolated sugarcane plantation miles from the nearest town. The witness, a 1-year-old farm foreman named João Ricardo, a man known for his pragmatism and deep knowledge of the land. On the night of November 17th, João Ricardo was driving his old pickup truck along a dirt service road that cut through the fields. The harvest was over, and the landscape was dominated by the dry, rustling leaves of the harvested cane. It was a clear night, and his headlights cut a solitary path through an immense darkness, a darkness so deep it felt solid. He was alone, returning from a routine check on an irrigation pump. It was then, without warning, that he saw it. And from this point onward, João Ricardo's life would be permanently divided into the time before that night and the time after. At first, João Ricardo noticed a soft, red glow emanating from behind a dense stand of sugarcane to his right. He assumed it was a trick of the light, perhaps a distant truck or farm equipment. But as he drove further, the glow intensified, casting long crimson shadows across the dirt road. It was a deep, unnatural red, unlike any vehicle lamp or warning beacon he had ever seen. He brought his pickup to a slow halt, the tires crunching on the dry earth. Cutting the engine, he was met with a silence that felt heavy, oppressive. The familiar night sounds, the crickets, the wind had ceased. The only thing that remained was a low, almost imperceptible hum that seemed to vibrate not in the air, but in the bones. He stepped out of the vehicle, the door creaking loudly in the void. The air felt thick, electric. And then, slowly, the source of the light, began to rise above the cane field. As the object cleared the top of the cane stalks, its form became defined against the starry sky. It was a perfect sphere, estimated to be the size of a small water tank. Its surface was a seamless, matte finish, glowing with a deep, pulsating crimson light from within. There were no visible seams, windows, or propulsion systems. It made no sound beyond the faint vibrational hum that seemed to press down on the surroundings. Frozen by the sight, he could only watch as it drifted silently over the field. Its movement was unnaturally smooth, gliding without any apparent effort. It moved parallel to the road, maintaining a constant distance, as if conducting a slow, methodical survey. The red light washed over the dry leaves below, making them look as if they were stained in blood. A profound sense of isolation gripped him, the feeling of being utterly alone in the presence of something incomprehensible. After what felt like an eternity, but in reality was scarcely 2 minutes, the sphere's pulsating light intensified once more. Without a sound, and with impossible acceleration, it shot vertically into the sky, shrinking from a tangible object to a mere pinprick of red light before vanishing among the stars. The oppressive silence broke, replaced by the returning chorus of crickets, as if a muted switch had been flipped. Shaken, he drove directly to the local authorities. His report was filed, but with no physical evidence beyond his testimony. It was officially categorized as an unexplained aerial phenomenon. No trace was found in the field, no burns, no impressions. The only tangible proof was the absolute conviction of a seasoned, rational man. To this day, he avoids that specific service road after nightfall. The event left no physical mark on the land, but an indelible one on him, a quiet testament to a mystery that remains, suspended in the humid air of the Brazilian countryside.